Welcome back today to the Words of Wisdom podcast. I'm so glad that you're here today because what we're diving into is hands down, I believe, one of the most important conversations I ever have with my teams and even with myself. And it's the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And before I dig into this, I'll be very honest with you, like years and years ago, I used to think that I was always growth mindset. I would say now I'm very, like growth mindset. But when I look back, I realize now that I was only ever growth mindset when things were going my way, not so positive or so growth mindset when things weren't. So what I want you to understand is you growth and fixed mindset is not just a theory, it's not just like a nice motivational phrase. Your mindset and the way you think about yourself, like your abilities, your challenges, and your future, I believe is the foundation for everything else in your life. And here's the truth: two people can face the exact same challenge, and their mindset will completely determine, their outcome. One person says, I can't do this, I'm not good at it, this isn't for me, they give up. Another person says, this is tough, but if I work at it, it'll improve, and they keep going and eventually they succeed. So it's the same challenge, but it's a completely different outcome. And I believe it all comes down to your mindset. And I see this every day in my work. Every day I coach and train people every single day, and I see people having different outcomes all the time. But they're being taught the same system. So the reality is it is the mindset and how they're approaching it and their attitude towards, situations. So in this episode, we're going to explore what exactly a growth mindset and a fixed mindset are, how to spot the signs of each one in yourself, and how they can either support you or sabotage you. But most importantly, how to shift into a growth mindset and actually strengthen it every single day. Because here's what I know: the people who succeed in business, in relationships, in life, they aren't necessarily the smartest, they're not necessarily the richest or the luckiest. They're the people who believe they can grow. So let's break it down. Like, what is the difference? So, over the past few weeks, I've been trying to add more value to the podcast, whether that's been through downloadable worksheets or guides, just to help you to take action. And a few of you have actually messaged me on Instagram to say how much you've actually really enjoyed the last worksheet, which I had to say that, that really, really made my day. So I made another one for this podcast, and it's all about you becoming more aware of your mindset, but how a fixed mindset might also be holding you back. It's a really simple exercise to help you put into practice what we've actually been talking about. I'll not spoil it too much. We'll talk about this later on. You can find it right now. It's linked in the top left of the description. So let's start with the basics. Like, what do we actually mean by a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset? And I believe like a fixed mindset is that belief that your intelligence, your talents, your abilities are like set in stone. You either have them or you don't. And if somebody's succeeding or doing well, it's like, oh, they got lucky. It's that idea that you're born with a certain level of capability and that's it. People with a fixed mindset say things like, I'm just not good with numbers. I'll never be confident. I don't have the natural talent for business. I'm too young. I'm too old. That's easy for her, but I could never do it. I can't do this. Can't is one of those words that I learned from a very young age. I remember in school, I was maybe about 8. And it's so funny because, like I just said there, I'm not good with numbers. I am actually good with numbers. But the reason I am is that, like, I used to be very good at mathematics in school. And I remember, like, having some maths equation or whatever that I couldn't figure out the answer. And I remember saying to my teacher, and it's always stuck in my head, and it's a long, long time ago. And I said, I can't do that, miss. And she turned around and she said to me, Sharon, there's no such word as can't. You're choosing not to. And I remember that completely gave me a different perspective. And I've used that throughout my whole life, throughout my career and stuff, gone like, like there's no such word as can't. And it actually completely changed my perspective on mathematics, whereby she said there's a right and there's a wrong answer. So I knew that the right answer was always there. I just needed to find it. Now I love mathematics as a result. So that's just like an example of like how changing from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset can change the outcome. On the flip side of like fixed mindset, a growth mindset, I believe, is that, your intelligence, your skills, and your abilities can be developed. You might not know how to do something yet, but with effort, learning, and persistence, you can improve. So people with a growth mindset may say things like, I don't know how to do this yet, but I can learn. I think yet is such an important word. If you start putting yet at the end of your sentence, sentences, you'll be amazed how things start to shift and change. People with a growth mindset will also say things like, mistakes are how I grow. I'm going to keep trying until I figure it out. If she can do it, that means it's possible for me too. So think about it like this. A fixed mindset sees talent as the ceiling. A growth mindset sees talent as the starting point. This difference matters because your mindset literally shapes your behavior. If you believe that you can grow, you try more, you risk more, you bounce back faster. If you believe you can, you avoid it, you quit, and you just stay stuck. And it's like that quote, about the word impossible. People will say like, that's impossible, but impossible itself has actually in it, I'm possible. So how do you spot it in yourself? And here's the thing, like, and this is what I believe. I believe that none of us are 100% fixed or 100% growth mindset. We all have areas where we lean one way, or the other. So how do you spot it? So signs you're in a fixed mindset. You avoid like challenges because you're afraid of looking stupid or failing. You get defensive when someone gives you feedback. It feels more like criticism instead of actual help. You secretly believe that effort is pointless. You think, if I was good at this, it wouldn't be this hard. You compare yourself maybe to others and you feel threatened by their success. Signs you're in growth mindset then on the flip is that you lean into the challenges. Even if they scare you, you'll still lean into them. You welcome the feedback, even if it stings a little bit, because it's actually going to help you to improve. You see effort as the path to mastery. You get inspired by other people's success because then it proves to you what's possible. And I always look at other people and I go, well, if they can do it, there's no reason why I can't do it. It's just where do I need to get better? And here's the self-check that you can use right now. Think about a challenge you're facing, whether it's in your business or in your personal life, and ask yourself, how are you talking to yourself about it? Is it, this is impossible, I'm not good at this? Or is it, this is hard, but I'll figure it out? And believe it or not, like, your language actually gives you away. So listen to that inner dialogue, because that's actually your mindset speaking, and that's actually shaping your future. So I think then the next important thing is to understand like how it can actually help you or how it can hold you back. So I want to talk about the impact of these mindsets, because this isn't just about positive thinking. It's about how your mindset shapes those actions and therefore your results in your future. So a fixed mindset holds you back in big ways that you probably don't even realize. It means that you never launch the business because you think you're not cut out for it. You don't apply for the promotion because you assume you'll get rejected. You stay in your comfort zone because you're terrified of looking like a beginner, or you give up after the first setback and call it proof that you're not good enough. So it's like putting a glass ceiling over your own head. You can see what's possible, but you won't let yourself reach for it. On the other hand, a growth mindset propels you forward. So you're willing to try the thing, even though you don't know how to do it yet. You see failure not as the end, but more as a stepping stone. You push through the challenges because you believe effort pays off. You ask yourself, what is this teaching me? Every challenge I go through, I keep asking it, what is this teaching me? You use other people's success as fuel rather than a reason to feel less or that you can't do it. And here's the thing, mindset becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe you can grow, you'll keep going until you do. If you believe you can't, you actually just stop trying, and that will become true. So that's the power, but it's also the danger of the mindset. And I think it was Henry Ford said it, whether you think you can or you can't, you're probably right. So how do you build and strengthen a growth mindset? So this is how we actually, shift, because you don't just snap your fingers and, you suddenly have a growth mindset. It's a muscle that you have to train like any other muscle. And here are some practical, I believe, powerful tools you can use to strengthen your growth mindset. So the first one is, and I've alluded to it already, is add the word yet. I believe this tiny word changes everything. So instead of saying, I can do this, say, I can't do this yet. And that little shift tells your brain that growth is possible. The second thing is redefine failure. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of success. Every successful person has a trail of failures behind them. Like if, even just go on Google and just Google, people who failed but then ended up succeeding. And you'll see like so many of them. See every setback as data, see it as feedback, and see it as practice. The third thing you want to do then is embrace the feedback. And, this is something that like I struggled with like over the years because I did initially take feedback as criticism and I would get on the defensive and stuff, but that's just my ego getting in the way. So instead of taking feedback as criticism, take it as coaching. Ask yourself, what's one thing I can learn from this? Because that's going to turn discomfort into growth. Fourth thing you want to do is focus on effort, not just the results. So celebrate yourself for showing up, for trying, for putting in the work. Results are external, okay, and results are emotional, okay, and results go up and down, okay. Effort is internal, and effort compounds over time, so that consistency eventually leads to the results. And this is why, I always have like little progression trackers and stuff for myself, because I don't always get the result that I want, but if I'm putting the effort in, I know it's going to compound over time. The fifth thing you want to do is surround yourself with growth-minded people. And I've ran lots of podcasts and I've done a TED Talk, and you see in my socials a lot I talk about you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Your environment does matter. If you're around people who complain, if you're around people who stay stuck or tear others down, you'll absorb it, okay? So put yourself around people who inspire you, people who try, people who fail, people who get back up after they've fallen down. The sixth thing I want you to do is notice your self-talk. And again, this is your self-awareness. Catch yourself in fixed mindset language when you're using words like I can't, I'm not good enough, I'll never. Flip it to growth language. I've become very, very, like the words we say out loud really, really matter. So even like, over the years, I've caught myself saying words, oh, I hate doing that. Like I do not use the word hate now at all because I see that it's got negative connotations and can be quite fixed mindset. I try not to use the word I can't, and I look to, replace it with like I'm learning, I'm improving, I'm growing. And then the seventh thing I want you to do is practice resilience. Every time you face a challenge, remind yourself, this is how I grow. Shift from why is this happening to me to what is this teaching me? And here's a practical exercise that you can actually try today. Write down one area of your life where you feel stuck. Maybe it's in business, maybe it's confidence, maybe it's money, relationships. And now write down your current fixed mindset thoughts about it. And then what I want you to do is I want you to rewrite those same thoughts from a growth mind perspective. And what you'll notice is how different they feel. And that shift is the first step to change. So what does life look like with a growth mindset? So this is where you can dream a little. Like, what would your life look like if you fully embraced a growth mindset? What would you start doing that you've been avoiding? What risks would you finally take? What dreams would you stop pushing aside because you've convinced yourself they're impossible? With a growth mindset, challenges become opportunities. Setbacks become lessons. Other people's success becomes inspiration. And here's the ripple effect. When you live with a growth mindset, you don't just transform your own life, you give everyone around you permission to grow too. Your friends, your family, your team, your clients. You become proof that growth is possible. And that proof is powerful. Let's bring it all together. A fixed mindset says, I can't. A growth mindset says, I can learn. One will keep you stuck. The other one sets you free. You now know the difference. You know how to spot it in yourself. You know the impact it has. And you've got tools to shift into growth. So remember, you don't have to be perfect. This is about progress. It's not perfection. It's about catching yourself when you slip into fixed thinking and gently guiding yourself back into growth. So here's my challenge for you this week. Pick one area of your life where you feel stuck or limited. Write down the fixed mindset thoughts you've been telling yourself and then flip them into the growth mindset thoughts and take one small action from that new place. Because growth mindset isn't about what you think, it's about how you show up day after day. And when you choose growth consistently, I promise you, you will amaze yourself with what you're capable of. So again, look at guys, thank you for listening to me today. If this episode inspired you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you're not fixed, you're not stuck, you're always capable of growth, and your future is always bigger than your past.